Hello Africa, very good evening and a warm welcome to yet another edition of your favorite Pan-African show, Bottomline Africa. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim. It is Wednesday, the 17th day of January 2018, and we have a lot lined up for you in the program. But first, let's take a look at Africa in 60 seconds. European Union suspends a multi-million euro project in Kenya over alleged human rights abuses. Libya's only working international airport remains closed a day after fighting left at least 20 people dead. Nigeria holds a candlelight vigil march to protest against recent violence in the region which killed 80 people. And tonight in our studio discussion, we'll discuss the mounting trouble in county assemblies and the role of deputy governors. Welcome back to the program. If you're just joining us, the program begins right now. And on our Twitter poll tonight, we're asking you, do you support the EU's move to suspend the Indigenous People Fund? Do you support the EU's move, that is the European Union's move to suspend the Indigenous People Fund? So we'd like to hear your view. You know, the drill. Our Twitter handle is at KTN News. You can as well tweet me at Yusuf Ibra. The hashtag to use, as always, is Bottomline Africa. I'm going to go through some of the feedback or comments within the program. So let's begin with our top story, which is still tied to that Twitter poll. And the European Union has suspended a multi-million euro project in the face of mounting evidence that its funds were being used to carry out violent human rights abuses. Now, the news comes less than 24 hours after guards working from the EU-funded Kenya Forestry Service mounted a raid in Embubut Forest, where the Sengwer indigenous people live, shooting and killing 41-year-old Robert Kirotich and wounding another. Now, the EU ambassador to Kenya, Stefano Dijak, has condemned the news, saying, quote-unquote, yesterday's shooting took place after his team had formally alerted Kenya's government of the use of force by Kenya Forest Service guards in the Embubut Forest against innocent locals. This therefore led the EU to suspend its financial support for conservation work on the country's water towers. Support to the water towers program with the government of Kenya has also been suspended. Let's now cross over to the north of the continent, and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas on Wednesday, that is today, of course, called on Arabs, Muslims and Christians to visit Jerusalem in response to US President Donald Trump's decision to recognize it as the capital of Israel. Now, President Abbas was addressing the Al-Azhar International Conference in support of Jerusalem in Cairo, Egypt.
We hope that all of you will not boycott the people of Jerusalem, that you will communicate with the people of Jerusalem, that you will stand in solidarity with the people of Jerusalem, that you will visit Jerusalem. Visiting Jerusalem does not mean that you are visiting Israel, and it is not normalization with Israel. The Arab and Muslim nation must stand together, united, to say to this unjust world, why all these decisions? How far do they want us to go? How far are they trying to force us to go? We tell them, we will not resort to terrorism and violence. We will continue to make peaceful demands until we get our rights.
And still up north, the Libyan capital's only working international airport remains closed to flights a day after fighting left at least 20 people dead and several planes damaged. Now, the Mitiga Airport management said in a statement that all scheduled flights had been rerouted through the western city of Misrata. Mitiga Airport, a former military airbase on the eastern fringes of Tripoli, Libya, was evacuated on Monday after militiamen attacked it in an attempt to free colleagues held at a jail there. The Health Ministry of Libya's and UN-backed Government of National Accord, GNA, said 20 people were killed and 63 others wounded in the clashes. It did not specify if the casualties were civilians or fighters. 5 aircraft belonging to state-owned Afriqiya Airways, including cargo plane, was severely damaged. The company said in a statement. Now, private Libyan carrier Burak Air said 2 of its Boeing planes were also damaged in the fighting.
There was an attack on the airport, but thanks to the young men tasked with defending it, the attackers who do not care for this country and seek to harm it were repelled. Thank God. And thank God the airport now has no damage and, God willing, will return to work.
Now over to the west of the continent, and locals of Nigeria's Benue state held a candlelit vigil in Abuja to protest a recent violence in which 80 people were killed. Now the violent clashes between cattle herders and farmers have displaced tens of thousands. Now, reports indicate that the chaotic violence was as a result of a clash between Fulani Muslim herdsmen and Christian farmers over land in the Middle Belt region. The clashes present a setback to government efforts to boost security in the region. President Muhammadu Buhari has sworn not to spare perpetrators found guilty.
What is happening is just a procession, but it's something that is quite... a procession in memory of the dead, those that have been killed by the armed Fulani herdsmen in Benue State, and to kind of tell the government that the people are no longer okay with the killings that have been going on, and the Nigerian government should take action and put an end to the killings.
I feel betrayed by the Nigerian government in its inability to protect innocent citizens from a well-organized militia that's were creating havoc across Benue, across the Benue Valley and farming communities in the Middle Belt.
Now, over to the central part of the continent, and the supporters of Congolese President Joseph Kabila is under pressure to leave power, mobilized yesterday in Kinshasa on the 17th anniversary of the death of his father and former President Laurent Kabila. Take a look. Here, 17 years later, the population's enthusiasm has not diminished. People still want to celebrate Mzee. That's all the better. It is up to us to pass on the torch, that flame we have received from him, to the younger generation. Joseph Kabila continues the work of liberation of these people, to give it back the power so that it chooses its leaders. What Daddy did, that's what the son does. Today, it is the continuity of the exercise. The son is doing the same mission that was entrusted to him by his peers, those who worked with the late Mzee Laurent Kabila. Now, around 10,000 refugee children may be missing out on getting quality education due to lack of facilities. Now, the children spread across 3 camps in northwestern Tanzania only have 193 classrooms. Between them and a handful of class teachers spread. And according to UNHCR officials, at least $12,000 is needed to better facilities. Most of the students are forced to learn under flimsy tents on uncomfortable benches and with hunger pangs making concentration difficult. Now, most refugees in the camps are fleeing political instability in neighboring countries. It is estimated that at least 10,000 Burundians have arrived from Burundi since the year 2016.
Look over there. There are not enough chairs. They need to add more chairs over there as well as over there so that students don't have to sit on the ground because there are no chairs, so that they don't have to get their clothes dirty.
The environment that a child cannot properly learn. We need more money. Construction of the classroom pretty much translates to we need money to put the classrooms there.
Some students drop out because the situation at home, maybe their parents are not able to support them, so they decide to leave school and try to earn an income. Some are also forced to stop learning when they fall pregnant.
Now, former Chelsea football star and Ivory Coast striker Didier Drogba praises Liberia's president-elect, saying George Weah has shown that, quote-unquote, through hard work, perseverance, you can achieve your goals and make your dreams come true for the good of the community, end of quote. Now, the former Chelsea star Didier Drogba led, plaudits on Friday from the world of football to George Weah after the only African to win the Ballon d'Or was elected president of Liberia.
It is true that George Weah has paved the way, but that doesn't mean that every footballer is going to want to become a president of the republic. So George has paved the way to have an impact on his country in his own way, and others can have an impact on their community in their way. And I think that I'm trying in my way. He has been a role model for me for a long time. He is a big brother for me. And what he has accomplished shows that through hard work, perseverance, you can achieve your goals and make your dreams come true for the good of the community.
Now, over to Cameroon, where Africa Mercy, a former Danish rail ferry converted into a state-of-the-art hospital ship, is on a mission to provide free healthcare and services to the poor in parts of the world. Now, the charity hospital is run by international faith-based group Mercy Ships. The vessel docked in the port city of Douala in August to carry out critical treatments, including 500 fistula operations. The professionals, made up of volunteer doctors, nurses, surgeons and other crew, will spend 10 months in Cameroon providing free healthcare services.
We're looking for those patients that have very severe deformities and which are very disfiguring, like in the maxillofacial surgical realm. We think about those big orofacial tumors that can be very life-threatening and that are very complex surgeries that require very specialized knowledge and competency from surgeons.
Now, still in Cameroon, the Confederation of African Football is currently on an inspection visit to Cameroon. CAF envoys were in Cameroon yesterday to assess the country's readiness for the next African Cup of Nations, scheduled for June 2019 in Cameroon. Now, Cameroon's AFCON organizing community has been under pressure to prove they will be ready to host the tournament in 2019. So far, none of the main stadiums are complete, while accommodation and transport remains a concern there.
All necessary logistical and security arrangements have been made at all sites to allow CAF inspection mission members to work in complete peace of mind. The work is progressing in spite of some delays, but we are confident that the work is progressing because we have the proof that the work is progressing. We hope that by the deadline for the AFCON, everything will be ready. This mission is really welcome because Cameroon hopes to know that this AFCON is confirmed, and so people will have a great time. We'll be comfortable because business will thrive, and we really expect CAF to give us a favorable opinion.
Now, South Korea's Samsung Electronics plans to double the annual revenue contribution from its African markets to 20% of the firm's global total in the next 5 years, the head of its business on the continent said on Monday. Now, Sung Yoon said the electronics giant, which account for over half of the mobile handsets and televisions sold in African nations like Kenya, will set up shops and other retail channels in more African countries and cut product delivery times. Demand for Samsung products was being driven by growing African demand for bigger TV and mobile phone screens.
I cannot go for an iPhone because of such kind of skyrocketing price. Because Samsung is pocket friendly, I choose Samsung.
The entire Africa business contribution to Samsung is less than 10% now. But within next 3 years or 5 years, I want to grow up to 20% by focusing more partnership with the local team and local partners and local customers. But we think Africa is extremely important for the future, right? And the future means in 3 years, 5 years, this country will grow, right? And the infrastructure will be established more.
Now, a group of Egyptian petroleum engineers has developed a liquid-resistant fabric for sportswear. They hope will provide a low-cost alternative to expensive imported equivalent. Since the devaluation of the Egyptian pound in the year 2016, imported sportswear has become hard to afford for many Egyptians. Now, the locally produced fabric will offer an affordable and stylish alternative to sportswear from overseas, and the company promises low-priced, durable and waterproof products in the sportswear, which will cost 200 to 400 pounds, which is relatively inexpensive compared to imported items.
The first thing we thought of was to make a sports clothing brand. When we started thinking, we found that sports in general has become a lifestyle. Everyone is making an effort to incorporate sports into their day. So why don't we start making a brand that is Egyptian, elegant and has good designs? No, like in the beginning, we thought of Egypt and Egyptians. Many things will make you want to buy it before you even see the design. Like for example, with constant and daily usage, the t-shirt will not get wrinkled, it will not smell, it does not do any of that. Even before you look at the design or the t-shirt, these benefits will really change the way you think. You are not going to buy this t-shirt and only wear it once.
Now, after months of renovation, the Terra Culture Arena in Lagos, Nigeria, recently reopened to provide audiences with a new theatre experience. It features modern lighting, sets, as well as a special sound and acoustic system to complement shows. Now, the Terra Culture Arena is currently showing Fela and the Calcutta Queens, a production that touches on the life of Nigerian Afrobeat king Fela Kuti and the women around him. Initially built in the year 2003, the Educational, Culture and Arts Center was launched to promote diversity in different culture. Nollywood producer Bolanal Aston Peters is the founder of the Terra Culture. For nearly 30 years, the country's performing arts scene has been virtually non-existent, with its national theatre hardly staging any shows. Let's listen in.
I'd worked with the United Nations for years, came back home, and I felt that there was a gap, that we could do a lot more in the arts and culture space, especially working as an expatriate. You tend to go to a lot of art venues, so we didn't have a lot in Nigeria, so I decided to build this.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a step forward for the arts, especially for stage. So she's doing a great thing, and I'm happy to be part of this production.
I hope theatre, stage plays become much bigger in this part of the world. I know it costs probably a lot to do these kind of productions and all that, so let's pray for even a bigger space.
We had this joke in-house. We were always coming, and it was usually a one-man stage play that we usually saw then. But I've been here a couple of times after it was rebuilt, and it always blew me away because they had this. There was lots of things to do, It was a different ball.
Now, over to the south of the continent, and that is in South Africa. Punk rock has found a home in South Africa. In Soweto, township is steeped in rich musical history and pop culture. The genre is growing fast in influence and popularity. Local bands draws a crowd every time they rehearse or perform. Fans were at first curious and then hooked. The sound that originated in the UK, America and Australia in the mid-70s was meant to be an anti-establishment to upset the status quo and mainstream culture. Band members discovered their love for punk music while part of a group of skaters called the Skat Society Soweto 7 years ago. Now in Soweto, a flashpoint of the anti-apartheid struggle when music was widely used to bring attention to the cause. Punk rock could be considered just another form of self-expression, but it is one that is relatively new and has resonated with the youth, mostly born frees, a generation born after apartheid ended in 1994 and has lived only under democracy but still feel let down by the system.
There seems to be a lot of interest and partaking, like the local skaters, even the little kids who are taking part in the skating. Yeah, that means a lot to the community.
We started the band via skateboarding. We like skateboarding very fast and dangerous. So, you need a soundtrack to fit that. So we moved on right from the skateboarding into punk.
There's this new vibe that South Africa is kicking into, Like people want to exploit different things now and look cooler than maybe the previous decade, I don't know. So I think that has a good impact on how when we throw shows, you get a variety of people, random people coming to shows now. People listen to house, hip-hop,
Now, let's cross over to the Korea. And North and South Korea have agreed to march together under a single, quote-unquote, unified Korea flag at next month's Winter Olympics in the South. Now, they also agreed to field a joint women's ice hockey team after rare talks at the village of Pamjom. Now, North Korea will send a 550-member delegation to the Games, which includes 230 cheerleaders, 140 artists, and 30 taekwondo players for a demonstration. Now, these are the first high-level talks between the two Koreas in more than 2 years. The Games will take place between 9th to 27th February in Pyeongchang in South Korea. It's interesting, the US and Donald Trump are missing those talks between the Koreas. Very interesting times indeed. And that report from Korea takes us to a very short break. But when Bottomline Africa returns, we'll have a studio discussion. It has everything to do with how county government, at least some of them, how they have been behaving. We've seen chaos in Kericho, Muranga. Deputy governors being called flaggers. So it seems 5 years after the onset of devolution, people are yet to grasp the system. We have a governance expert. We have the chairman of deputy governors in Kenya is going to link up with me all the way from Kisii, as well as a lawyer. All that after this very short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.